The courthouse smelled like old paper and cold air, the kind of cold that clung to your clothes, crept into your bones, and refused to leave. Emma Allen sat alone on the wooden bench outside courtroom 3B, hands folded neatly in her lap, eyes fixed on the floor as if the answers to her life were hidden in the pattern of the tiles. She didn't cry, she didn't fidget, she simply waited. People always mistook her silence for weakness. They always had. A burst of laughter broke through the hallway, loud, arrogant, echoing off the walls. Emma looked up just enough to see her husband, soon-to-be ex-husband, Blake Allen, sweeping into the hallway with his lawyer, flanked by two associates from his tech company. Blake looked wealthy, polished, overconfident, as always. He wore a tailored charcoal suit, a designer watch that cost as much as Emma's car, and that familiar smirk, the one that meant he was about to get away with something again. He spotted Emma. The smirk widened. "Emma," he said, voice dripping with false sympathy, "you look well." She didn't answer. She lowered her eyes again. He loved that. He loved when she stayed quiet. It made him feel powerful. His lawyer, a tall man with slicked back hair and a face carved out of smugness, flipped through a folder. "Blake, everything is in order. The recordings, the bank statements, the texts. She won't be able to dispute any of it." Emma's stomach tightened. Recordings, bank statements, texts, all fake, all manufactured by Blake. He had spent months preparing this, setting traps, saving altered messages, sending Emma questions late at night to twist her answers, manipulating financial documents to make her look irresponsible. He wanted everything: the house, the savings, their business, and their daughter. But most of all, he wanted control. Blake leaned closer to her. "You really should have agreed to my offer, Em. We could have done this quietly." Quietly. That was how Blake liked everything. Emma's voice, Emma's presence, Emma's needs. Quiet, silent, invisible. She didn't respond. She didn't need to. Her silence infuriated him more than anything she could have said. Blake straightened his tie. "Don't worry, I'm sure the judge will show mercy. Maybe you'll even get weekend visitation." His lawyer chuckled. Emma's heart throbbed painfully at the thought of their daughter, Lily. Bright, sweet, full of laughter, none of which came from Blake. The little girl worshipped her mother, but Blake insisted Emma was too emotional to care for her full time. He was trying to take Lily away. That was the one thing that hurt. Everything else, the house, the business, the money, she could live without. Lily? Never. The courtroom doors opened suddenly. The bailiff called out, "Case number 241B, Allen versus Allen. Both parties please enter." Blake clapped his lawyer on the shoulder. "Showtime." He strode inside confidently while Emma rose slowly, smoothing her simple navy dress. She walked calmly, quietly, as if her entire world wasn't crashing around her. Inside, the courtroom was half full. Blake's employees were seated behind him like loyal soldiers. Emma sat alone at her table. Even Lily wasn't there. She was at school, completely unaware of the storm ripping her family apart. He was trying to take Lily away. That was the one thing that hurt. Everything else, the house, the business, the money, she could live without. Lily? Never. Judge Rivera, a stern, sharp-eyed woman in her late 50s, took her seat. She reviewed the file in front of her with a frown. "We are here to address the divorce proceedings between Blake Allen and Emma Allen. Custody, property division, and financial claims have been submitted." Blake's lawyer stood immediately. "Your Honor, we will be seeking full custody of the minor child, sole ownership of the marital home, and full rights to the Allen Dynamics business." "Ambitious," Judge Rivera said dryly. "And your reasoning?" The lawyer slid a stack of papers forward. "We have evidence Mrs. Allen is mentally unstable, financially reckless, and has displayed erratic behavior in the presence of the child." Blake put a hand on his chest as if pained. "I've tried to help her, Your Honor, but she refuses treatment." Emma remained still, silent, unshaken. Judge Rivera turned to Emma. "Mrs. Allen, do you have representation today?" Emma shook her head gently. "No, Your Honor." A murmur spread across the room. Blake's lawyer looked delighted. Judge Rivera raised an eyebrow. "Do you wish to request a continuance?" Emma met her eyes, soft, steady, unreadable. "No, Your Honor, I'm ready." Blake smirked, leaning back as if he'd already won. "Very well," Judge Rivera said. "Let's review the evidence." What followed was a painful procession of lies. Fake text messages where Blake had rewritten their conversations, altered bank records showing Emma secretly draining accounts, audio clips stitched together to make her sound unstable, a staged video of her crying filmed during an argument Blake had provoked. Every lie felt like a blade. Each time the judge looked at Emma for a response, Emma simply lowered her eyes, not out of fear, but restraint. Blake's lawyer ended with flourish. "Your Honor, it is clear Mrs. Allen is unfit to manage finances or care for their daughter. Full custody should be granted to Mr. Allen." The judge took a long pause. Then she turned to Emma. "Mrs. Allen, do you have anything you wish to say in your defense?" Emma lifted her head. For the first time that day, she looked at Blake, and Blake's smile faltered, because in her eyes there was no fear, only patience, and something he couldn't name, something that made the hairs rise on the back of his neck. "No, Your Honor," Emma said calmly. "Not today." A ripple passed through the courtroom. Judge Rivera's brows knit. "Very well. We will reconvene tomorrow morning for the final hearing and decision." Blake exhaled in satisfaction, already celebrating. Emma gathered her things quietly, walked past him without a word, and stepped out into the cold air. She didn't look back, because tomorrow was the day everything changed. Everything. The next morning, the courthouse felt heavier, like the walls themselves remembered what happened yesterday and were waiting for the next act. Snow dusted the steps outside, melting as soon as someone stepped on it. People hurried inside, pushing cold air and gossip through the doors. Emma arrived early, not nervous, not shaken, just quiet. She wore the same navy dress, her hair pulled back simply, her expression calm and unreadable. In her hands, she held a small black notebook, nothing fancy, the spine slightly worn, but she held it like it mattered. She took her seat alone at the same table as yesterday. Blake hadn't arrived yet. Judge Rivera entered the room shortly after, taking her place with the same commanding presence. She shuffled through files, pausing occasionally to reread something with a frown. The door swung open. Blake Allen strutted into the courtroom with the confidence of a man who believed the universe revolved around him. His suit was lighter today, steel gray, and his smile was wider, brighter, more arrogant than usual. His lawyer, Mr. Crane, walked beside him, flipping through paperwork, while two of Blake's employees followed behind him like bodyguards. He looked at Emma and smirked again, as if this was a performance, as if the ending had already been written, as if today was meant to be his triumph. He sat down across from her, tapping a gold pen repeatedly against the table. "Sleep well, Em?" he whispered, leaning forward. Emma didn't respond. She opened her notebook slowly, resting it on the table. The pages were blank, empty. But Blake didn't know that, and it bothered him. Judge Rivera cleared her throat. "Before we continue," she said, "I spent time last night reviewing the submitted evidence from both parties. Mr. Crane, I have several concerns about the validity of the materials your client presented." Blake stiffened. Crane immediately jumped up. "Your Honor, I can assure you everything we submitted—" "I'm not asking for assurance," Judge Rivera cut sharply. "I'm asking for explanation." Crane swallowed. "This is all documented proof of Mrs. Allen's instability." "And yet," the judge said, flipping a page, "the metadata on several audio files shows mismatched timestamps. Some bank records appear to be scans rather than originals, and the text messages lack carrier verification." Crane's face flushed. Blake shot him a glare sharp enough to cut steel. "This is standard formatting," Crane tried. "No," Judge Rivera said firmly, "it's amateur forgery." A wave of murmurs spread through the courtroom. Blake's mouth tightened. Crane adjusted his tie nervously. Emma stayed silent. Judge Rivera's gaze shifted to her. "Mrs. Allen, did you have any role in creating or altering these documents?" "No, Your Honor," Emma said softly. "And do you deny the accusations brought against you in these materials?" Emma turned one page in her notebook, still blank, and looked up. "I deny all of them." Her voice was calm, steady, unwavering. The room hung on the words, waiting for more. But she didn't elaborate. Blake smirked, recovering quickly. "Your Honor, with all due respect, Emma is very good at pretending." Crane nodded eagerly. "Mrs. Allen may appear calm, but we can provide further evidence." Judge Rivera held up a hand. "That is enough for now. We will proceed, but I am not satisfied with the credibility of your submissions. Today's focus will be on live testimony." Blake sat back, lips curling, exactly what he wanted. He rose from his seat dramatically, walking to the witness stand. Crane puffed up. "Your Honor, we call Mr. Blake Allen to the stand." Emma exhaled slowly. Blake placed his hand on the Bible, swore in, and settled comfortably into the leather chair as if it were the throne he believed he deserved. Crane stepped forward proudly. "Mr. Allen, can you explain to the court why you are seeking full custody of your daughter?" Blake nodded, adopting an expression of deep sadness that made Emma's stomach churn. "Your Honor," he began solemnly, "my wife is troubled. She's always been emotionally unpredictable, mood swings, anxiety, outbursts. She's overwhelmed easily, and I've done everything I can to support her." Emma's fingers curled around the edges of her notebook. The lies flowed so smoothly. "Can you give an example?" Crane asked. Blake nodded again. "There was one time she locked herself in the bathroom for hours, crying. She left Lily alone in her room. It happened more than once." Emma's heart clenched. That day, Blake had screamed at her until she broke down, then mocked her for crying. Lily had been asleep the entire time, safe and sound, but Blake sculpted the truth into something monstrous. "And financially," Crane continued, "was she stable?" Blake sighed heavily, feigning pain. "No, absolutely not. She made reckless purchases, drained savings accounts, and hid debts from me. I had to take control before things spiraled further." Judge Rivera scribbled notes, her expression unreadable. Crane pressed on. "And how has her behavior impacted your daughter?" Blake placed a hand over his heart. "It's dangerous, Your Honor. Lily deserves stability. She deserves a parent who can handle responsibility and emotion, someone reliable, someone sane." Emma's chest burned. Crane turned to Judge Rivera. "Your Honor, my client only wants what's best for his child. Mrs. Allen is not well." Blake nodded solemnly. "I still care for her, I do, but she needs help, and Lily needs protection." Emma's silence was a living thing in the room. The courtroom believed they were watching a broken woman being dismantled by her husband's lies. but they weren't. They were watching a storm gather. Blake returned to his seat, glowing with victory. Crane straightened proudly. "Your Honor, the evidence is clear. Mrs. Allen is incapable of providing a stable environment. We request full custody, full ownership of the marital home, and full rights to their business." Judge Rivera turned her sharp eyes to Emma. "Mrs. Allen," she said quietly, "you may respond." Emma stood slowly. Her dress fell neatly at her sides. Her notebook remained in her hand. She walked to the witness stand, placed her hand on the Bible, and sat down. Crane smirked. Blake folded his arms, triumph oozing from him. Emma lifted her gaze to Judge Rivera. "Mrs. Allen," the judge said quietly, "do you contest your husband's claims?" Emma inhaled deeply. Then, "Yes, Your Honor, every one of them." Blake snorted. Crane rolled his eyes. Emma didn't react. Judge Rivera's gaze shifted to her. "Mrs. Allen, do you have proof?" Emma paused, just long enough for the entire courtroom to lean in. Then she said softly, "Not today." Gasps, whispers. Crane grinned triumphantly. Blake's smile returned full force. "Then we'll proceed to final judgment tomorrow morning." The gavel struck. The hearing ended. Blake and Crane walked out laughing. Emma gathered her notebook, then stood up and smiled. A small, knowing, quiet smile. Tomorrow was the day she'd been waiting for. That night, the city felt quieter than usual. Snow drifted down in soft, slow flakes, settling on rooftops and sidewalks like a blanket trying to smother the chaos of the world. Emma walked home through the silence, her boots crunching against the thin layer of ice beneath her. She didn't rush, she didn't shake, she didn't even replay Blake's lies in her mind. She knew exactly what she was doing. People thought silence meant surrender. In Emma's case, silence meant strategy. Her small apartment was dim when she entered. Lily was already asleep in her bedroom down the hall, the warm glow of a nightlight spilling under the door. Emma hung up her coat and walked into the kitchen, where a single laptop waited on the table. She sat down, opened it, and entered a password only she knew. The screen lit up to reveal a folder labeled Truth. Inside were dozens of video files, voice recordings, screenshots, and documents. Emma clicked the first one, an audio file Blake never knew she recorded. His voice filled the room. "It doesn't matter what I do, Emma. No one will believe you anyway." Emma closed her eyes. She remembered that night. The way he'd cornered her during an argument, the way he grabbed her phone, not realizing it was already recording, the way he boasted about how he could twist anything to look like her fault. She hadn't planned to use it then, but now it was exactly the evidence she needed. She clicked the next file, a video. This one showed Blake in his office pacing back and forth, talking on the phone with his mistress, Lena. His voice was sharp, angry, reckless. "Relax, Lena, it's all taken care of. The judge will believe whatever I show her. Emma's too scared to fight back." "What if she does?" Lena asked. Blake laughed, cold, cruel, dismissive. "She won't. She never fights. That's the beauty of it." Emma closed the file and leaned back. He thought silence was weakness, but he never realized silence was the perfect cover to watch, document, and prepare. For 2 years she collected proof, not because she wanted revenge, but because she knew this moment, this divorce, this cruelty, this attempt to take Lily would come eventually. Blake was predictable. His arrogance was predictable. And Emma had learned a long time ago that arrogant men always created their own downfall. All she had to do was wait. She opened the third file, a financial spreadsheet, one Blake thought he hid well. Offshore accounts, untaxed profits, illegal money transfers to secure government contracts, all masked through shell companies. Emma had quietly copied everything months ago while helping him prepare financial reports. Blake didn't realize she understood accounting better than he did. He didn't realize she'd been the one balancing the books for years. He certainly didn't realize she knew every secret he believed no one could find. She moved to the next folder, Safety. Inside were videos taken from their home's security cameras Blake installed to monitor the staff, but that also recorded his rages, yelling, doors slamming, thrown objects, shattered glass, moments Lily cried because Blake terrified her. Emma downloaded them quietly, back when Blake didn't bother to check who had access. He thought she was stupid. He thought she was fragile. He thought she was simple, naive, easy to manipulate. He never realized what she really was: patient, observant, strategic, quietly intelligent, a silent storm. Emma opened one final file, the file that mattered most, a video clip titled Confession. Blake sat in his car, speaking on the phone, unaware his Bluetooth system was synced with Emma's old dash cam. "Listen, if things go south, I'll say Emma forged the documents. She won't talk back. She never does. And even if she tries, no one will care. She's forgettable." Emma didn't flinch. She didn't rewind the video. She didn't need to relive any of it. She simply closed the laptop and picked up the small black notebook from the table. The same notebook she had brought to court. The same notebook with blank pages. But inside the back cover, taped neatly behind a folded flap, was a tiny silver USB drive, the one Blake had no idea existed. Emma held it between her fingers, feeling the weight of it. It was light, ridiculously light for something that could destroy a man's empire in 1 second. She placed it gently in her coat pocket. Tomorrow the silence would end. The next morning, Emma arrived at the courthouse 20 minutes early. She walked with purpose, her chin lifted slightly higher than before. The hallways buzzed with chatter. News had spread that the judge questioned Blake's evidence. Emma took her seat again at the same table. She clasped her hands together, not in nervousness, but in focus. Blake entered minutes later, radiating confidence. "Good morning, Em," he said smugly, "ready to lose everything?" She didn't look at him. She didn't need to. These were his final moments of superiority. She wasn't going to steal them. She'd let him enjoy them while they lasted. His mistress, Lena, walked in quietly behind him, hair styled perfectly, lips glossed to shine. She glanced at Emma with a smirk that held too much pride for someone who wasn't even part of this marriage. Blake rested a hand on Lena's back as he passed. Emma saw it, but her face remained still. The judge entered. The room fell silent. "Today," said Judge Rivera, "we will review final testimonies before I make my decision." Crane stood immediately, puffed with confidence. "Your Honor, we'd like to begin with additional claims of Mrs. Allen's instability." Judge Rivera held up a hand sharply. "No, we will hear from Mrs. Allen first." Blake choked on his own breath. Crane frowned. "Your Honor, she has presented nothing." "She will speak today," Judge Rivera said. "Mrs. Allen, the floor is yours." The courtroom fell silent. Dozens of eyes turned to Emma. Blake smiled, certain she would crumble, certain she had nothing, certain her silence meant defeat. Emma stood slowly. She reached into her coat pocket, and her fingers closed around the USB drive. Calmly, gracefully, she stepped forward. She placed the notebook on the witness stand, opened it, turned it around so the judge could see. Blank pages. The room gasped. Blake's smile flickered. Judge Rivera raised an eyebrow. "Mrs. Allen?" Emma reached into her pocket, pulled out the small silver USB drive, held it up, and said softly, "I would like to submit evidence." The courtroom froze around Emma like a photograph. The small silver USB drive glinted between her fingers, innocent in appearance, yet heavy with consequence. Blake stared at it as if it were a weapon, one he never imagined she'd possess. Judge Rivera motioned calmly. "Mrs. Allen, please approach." Emma stepped forward. Quiet, graceful, unhurried. Blake's lawyer, Crane, newly tripped as he rushed toward the judge's bench. "Your Honor, this is highly irregular." "Mr. Crane," the judge snapped, "sit down before you embarrass yourself." Crane deflated and stumbled backward to his chair. Emma handed the USB drive to the bailiff, who presented it to Judge Rivera. The judge examined it carefully before gesturing to the court technician. "Load the contents. We will review them together." Crane leapt up again. "Objection! This is last-minute, unseen evidence." Judge Rivera didn't even look at him. "You submitted evidence that I suspect is forged. You do not get to object to legitimate counterproof." A murmur rippled through the courtroom. Blake shifted uncomfortably in his seat. For the first time since the divorce began, he wasn't smiling. The technician plugged the USB into the court laptop. A folder appeared on screen. Truth. Inside it lay several files. Audio, video, documents, screenshots. Judge Rivera clicked the first audio file. Blake's voice filled the room instantly. "It doesn't matter what I do, Emma. No one will believe you anyway." Gasps erupted across the courtroom. Blake lunged forward. "That's taken out of context." "Sit down, Mr. Allen," Judge Rivera ordered. His jaw locked shut. Emma watched him quietly. The judge nodded to the technician. "Play the next one." The second file opened. Blake shouting in his office, pacing angrily. "Relax, Lena. I told you. It's all taken care of. Emma won't fight. She's too scared to say anything." "What if she says something?" Lena's voice asked. "She won't. She's weak." The entire courtroom looked slowly toward Lena, who sat behind Blake. Her face drained of color. Crane sputtered. "This could be a deep fake." "It's a time-stamped, authenticated recording," Judge Rivera said coldly, "and it matches Mr. Allen's voice perfectly." Blake shot up from his seat. "Your Honor, this is an invasion of privacy." Judge Rivera's eyes sharpened. "You were planning to manipulate judicial proceedings. Privacy is the least of your concerns." Lena shifted uncomfortably, gripping the edge of her designer purse. Emma simply watched, still calm, still silent, still in control. The next file opened, a video clip. Blake stood in the kitchen of their home, screaming at Emma. A plate shattered, a chair toppled, Lily cried softly in the background. Blake's voice cut through the courtroom. "Stop crying, Emma! God, you're pathetic! Get it together or I'm taking Lily away from you!" Blake's face turned purple. That was... She provoked me!" he yelled. Judge Rivera slammed her gavel. "Mr. Allen, you will remain silent unless spoken to, or I will have you removed." Blake froze. Lena buried her face in her hands. Emma breathed slowly, her eyes drifting down briefly. She didn't want to see it again. She didn't want to hear it again. But she needed the court to see the truth. All of it. The next file opened. A spreadsheet. Numbers, transactions, offshore accounts, illegal wire transfers. Crane's face turned ghost white. "Your Honor," Emma said gently for the first time, "these accounts were created using stolen company funds. Mr. Allen used shell corporations in Belize and Panama. I have the banking trails and his signature authorizing each transfer." Blake's chair screeched against the floor as he stood. "You little—" he roared. Two bailiffs stepped forward immediately, hands on their tasers. Judge Rivera's glare could have melted the walls. "Mr. Allen, if you raise your voice again, I will have you detained for contempt." Blake sat down, barely. His breathing was erratic, panicked, his confidence shattering like glass. Emma, meanwhile, remained completely composed. Her voice carried not anger, but clarity. "Your Honor," she continued, "I managed the accounting for our business. I kept records of every discrepancy, every missing dollar, every funneled payment. I warned him several times that this was illegal. He laughed." She looked at Blake. He couldn't meet her eyes. Judge Rivera opened the last video file. A recorded phone call. The dash cam had caught it perfectly. Blake's voice filled the courtroom. "Look, if this divorce gets messy, I'll just say Emma forged the documents. She's too quiet to defend herself. She's forgettable." "Are you sure the judge will believe you?" Lena asked. "Of course," Blake snapped. "Everyone always believes me." Silence. Total, suffocating silence. Lena's lips trembled. Blake's lawyer put his head in his hands. And Blake looked like a man watching his own execution. Judge Rivera inhaled slowly. "This," she said, tapping her pen, "is damning." Crane stood shakily. "Your Honor, if I may—" "You may not." Crane sank back down. Judge Rivera turned fully toward Blake. "Mr. Allen," she said slowly, "you knowingly presented manipulated evidence. You attempted to deceive the court. You verbally and emotionally abused your wife. You acted recklessly in the presence of your child, and you misappropriated company funds." Her tone sharpened. "All of which is documented here." Emma didn't smile. She didn't gloat. She simply breathed. Blake opened his mouth, then closed it again. Lena looked sick. Judge Rivera turned back to Emma. "Mrs. Allen," she said softly, "do you have any further evidence you wish to present?" Emma shook her head. "No, Your Honor, that is all." Judge Rivera nodded. "Very well. Given the severity of what we've seen today, I will need time to deliberate. We will reconvene tomorrow morning for final judgment." She paused. "And Mr. Allen," Blake looked up, trembling, "you are not to leave the state. At all." His mouth opened, stunned. Lena gasped. Crane whispered a curse under his breath. Judge Rivera slammed the gavel. Court dismissed. Emma closed her notebook and rose from her seat. She walked toward the exit without looking back at Blake. But Lena scrambled after her. Emma, please wait!" Emma turned slowly. Lena's eyes were wide, desperate, filled with fear. Blake dragged me into this. I didn't know please don't let him destroy my life along with his." Emma held up a hand. Lena froze. In Emma's voice, there was no hate, only truth. "Lena," Emma said softly, "you chose him. You helped him, you lied for him, and now you're afraid of the consequences." Lena swallowed hard. Emma didn't move closer, didn't threaten, didn't raise her voice. She simply said, "What happens next is not my choice." Then she walked away, leaving Lena standing alone. Tomorrow would decide everything. For Blake, for Lena, for Emma, and for Lily. The courthouse felt different the next morning. Tense, electric. Word had spread. Employees, lawyers, court staff, everyone knew that something massive had happened yesterday in courtroom 3B. Emma walked through the double doors with her shoulders straight and her steps steady. She wasn't early, but she wasn't late either. She moved like someone who knew exactly where she stood. Not above anyone, not below anyone, but finally equal after years of being treated like she didn't matter. She took her seat quietly. Across the aisle, Blake arrived shortly after with the frantic energy of a man walking into a burning building looking for a door that doesn't exist. His once perfect suit was wrinkled. His hair wasn't styled. He looked like he hadn't slept. He hadn't. The moment he stepped into the courtroom and saw Emma, he froze, as if seeing her calmness confirmed that he had lost something he never thought could be taken from him. Crane, his lawyer, looked even worse, eyes bloodshot, hands shaking, files scattered. He whispered harshly to Blake, but Blake didn't seem to hear a word. Lena didn't come today. She was smart enough not to. Judge Rivera entered and took her seat. She didn't smile. She didn't soften. Her eyes were sharp, focused, weighing the weight of what she was about to decide. "Good morning," she said, though her voice held no warmth. "We are reconvening for final judgment on Allen versus Allen." She turned to Emma. "Mrs. Allen, before I deliver my ruling, I would like to ask you something directly." Emma stood. "Yes, Your Honor." Judge Rivera steepled her fingers. "You had this evidence for a long time, didn't you?" Emma nodded. "Yes." "Years?" "Yes." Judge Rivera studied her. "And you chose not to use it. Why?" Emma breathed in slowly. The whole courtroom leaned in. "Because," she said calmly, "I never wanted to destroy Blake. I just wanted peace. I hoped he would change. I hoped he would be a better father. I hoped he would stop hurting us." She paused. "But when he tried to take Lily from me, that's when I knew I had to protect what mattered." Judge Rivera nodded slowly, respectfully. Blake swallowed hard, eyes glistening with a desperation he had never shown before. "Mrs. Allen," the judge said, "your restraint speaks loudly." Crane scoffed under his breath, but even he knew this case was dead. Judge Rivera turned to Blake. "Mr. Allen, please rise." Blake stood, stiff and trembling. "Mr. Allen," she began, voice like steel, "your actions, documented and undeniable, amount to manipulation, fraud, emotional abuse, and attempted parental alienation. You attempted to deceive this court with forged evidence." Blake's knees nearly buckled. Judge Rivera continued, her voice cold. "You have endangered your child emotionally, misappropriated company funds, and perpetrated a series of deceptions with the intent to harm your wife." Crane whispered, "Oh, God." Blake's breathing became shallow, panicked. Judge Rivera leaned forward. "Given the severity of your conduct, I see no grounds to grant you custody. Therefore, full custody of the minor child, Lily Allen, is awarded to Mrs. Emma Allen." A collective gasp filled the courtroom. Emma exhaled shakily, not in relief, but in gratitude. Blake lurched forward. "No, no, you can't. She's unstable. Judge Rivera slammed the gavel. "Enough!" Blake froze, wild-eyed. Emma didn't look at him. Her eyes were warm, warm for her daughter, not for the man breaking before her. Judge Rivera continued. "Furthermore, Mrs. Allen will retain sole ownership of the marital home." Blake's mouth fell open. She can't afford—" "She can," Judge Rivera interrupted sharply, "once she resumes control of the family business." Silence. Shock. Blake blinked rapidly. Control? What control? Judge Rivera turned page after page. Based on the corporate documents submitted, Mrs. Allen has been the majority shareholder of Allen Dynamics for the past 2.5 years. She has full legal authority to oversee company operations. Blake stumbled backward like he'd been struck. Emma watched him with calm eyes, not triumphant, not cruel, just done. "Your mistress may have influenced your decisions, Mr. Allen," the judge said, "but she has no bearing here. Your wife, whom you attempted to erase from your life, holds the authority you believed you had." Crane rubbed a hand over his face. "This is catastrophic," he whispered. Judge Rivera wasn't finished. "Given your financial misconduct, the court is freezing your personal accounts pending further investigation. You will be required to undergo a forensic audit." Blake's voice cracked. "My accounts? You can't freeze my—" "Sit down, Mr. Allen," she snapped. He sat, but his entire world was collapsing around him. The judge turned to Emma one final time. "Mrs. Allen, do you have any requests for child support or spousal support?" Emma shook her head gently. "No, Your Honor. I'll manage on my own." That moment, the room saw her strength. Not the loud strength people brag about, but the kind of strength that grows from surviving, enduring, and finally choosing yourself. Judge Rivera nodded with respect. "Then this concludes the matter. Mrs. Allen, the court wishes you and your daughter peace. Mr. Allen, the court wishes you reflection." With a final slam of the gavel, court is adjourned. Emma turned to leave. Blake called out, voice broken, "Emma, please." She paused, halfway to the door. He took a stumbling step forward. "Please, I didn't mean for it to go this far." She looked at him for the first time with pity, not fear. "Blake," she said softly, "you meant every step that led you here." He flinched. Emma walked away, out of the courtroom, into the hallway where sunlight streaked through tall windows. And there, waiting for her, Lily ran into her arms. "Mommy!" Emma lifted her daughter, holding her tight. She had lost so much. She had endured so much. She had survived so much. But now, she had everything she needed. For the first time in months, Emma stepped outside the courthouse with Lily in her arms and breathed air that didn't feel suffocating. The snow had stopped, leaving the world crisp, clean, and bright, like a blank page ready to be written on. Lily buried her face into her mother's shoulder, her tiny fingers clutching Emma's coat with all the trust in the world. "Are we going home, Mommy?" Lily asked softly. Emma kissed her daughter's forehead. "Yes, baby, we're going home." Not Blake's house, not the house where every room held echoes of broken arguments and silent suffering, but their home, small, peaceful, safe. Emma lowered Lily to the ground and held her hand as they walked toward the car. Everything around her felt lighter. Colors seemed brighter. Even the cold felt refreshing instead of biting. For the first time in a long time, Emma felt free. Meanwhile, Blake's world ending. Inside the courthouse, Blake remained frozen in place long after Emma left. His lawyer, Crane, stood beside him, whispering rapid-fire damage control, but Blake didn't hear a single word. His world was dissolving in real time, his accounts frozen, his business no longer his reputation shredded, his mistress gone, his lies exposed, and his daughter, the only piece of innocence in his life, was gone from his grasp forever. He sank onto the bench, burying his face in his hands. How did this happen?" he whispered. Crane stared at him in disbelief. "You did this," he muttered, "every bit of it." Blake didn't respond. He couldn't. His arrogance had been armor for so long. Now it was rubble. Two detectives entered the courtroom quietly. "Blake Allen?" one asked. Blake looked up, confused. "Yes?" "You're needed for questioning regarding the financial documents provided to the court." His blood ran cold. This wasn't divorce court anymore. This was criminal investigation. As they escorted him away, Blake's last glimpse was of the empty seat where Emma had sat so quietly, the seat he had once believed belonged to a weak, powerless woman. He knew now how wrong he was. Later that evening, a new beginning. Emma sat on the small sofa in her apartment, Lily leaning against her as they watched a children's movie. The soft flicker of the screen lit their faces, and for once, Emma didn't feel like she was waiting for the next blow. She didn't jump at every sound. She didn't brace herself for a slammed door or a cutting comment. She felt peace. Lily tugged her sleeve. "Mommy?" "Yes, sweetheart." "Are we going to be okay now?" Emma smiled, the real kind she hadn't felt in years. "We're going to be more than okay," she whispered, brushing a curl from Lily's forehead. She grinned and snuggled closer. The knock on the door startled them both. Emma stood, breathing deeply, preparing for anything. But when she opened the door, it wasn't Blake. It was Mara, her sister, a woman who hadn't visited in over a year, not because she didn't care, but because Blake never allowed it. "Em," Mara breathed, her eyes filling with tears. "I heard what happened. I came as fast as I could." Emma froze for a moment before Mara wrapped her in a tight, warm hug, one that chased away ghosts. "You're safe now," she whispered. "You did it. You got out." Emma held her sister tightly, her eyes stinging. "Yes," she whispered, "we did." Mara stepped back and looked around. "Is it true? The business, the house, everything?" Emma nodded. "But I don't want the house. It doesn't feel like home. And the business, I'll keep it running for the employees, but it doesn't define me." Mara smiled softly. "So what do you want?" Emma looked over at Lily, who was laughing at the cartoon on the screen. "I want a new life," she said. "A kind one, a quiet one, a life where my daughter grows up feeling safe." Mara hugged her again. "You deserve it, both of you." The weeks that followed. The investigation into Blake Allen widened quickly. Employees came forward with stories of his verbal abuse. Auditors found more financial inconsistencies. Investors backed away like rats from a sinking ship. Emma attended every meeting, calm and composed, not out of revenge, but responsibility. She was the majority shareholder now. The company was hers to protect, even if she had no interest in Blake's legacy. The board respected her instantly. Her steadiness, her honesty, her ability to see numbers clearly without ego or greed. Every day she shed another layer of fear, another shadow Blake had placed over her life. And every night she told Lily bedtime stories that didn't end in tears. 1 month later, final closure. Emma stood one final time on the courthouse steps, this time not for a hearing, but for Lily's custody paperwork. Everything was official, signed, sealed, protected. Lily skipped down the steps holding Emma's hand. "Mommy, can we get ice cream?" Emma laughed. "Yes, as much as you want." As they walked toward the car, someone called from behind. "Mrs. Allen?" Emma turned to see Judge Rivera approaching, coat wrapped tightly around her. "Your Honor," Emma said respectfully. Judge Rivera offered her a rare, soft smile. "I see many cases like yours, very few and like this." Emma bowed her head slightly. "I only wanted what was right. You achieved that, not through anger, but through truth." She paused before adding, "and through strength quieter than most people ever understand." Emma's eyes glistened. "Thank you," she whispered. Judge Rivera nodded once and walked away. Emma watched her go, then lifted her daughter into her arms. Lily giggled, wrapping her tiny arms around her mother's neck. "Let's go," Emma said softly. "We have a new life to build." And for the first time in years, she stepped forward without fear, without pain, without a shadow behind her. A woman reborn.